Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the heavyweight, full-size luxury SUV ring to break down some truly fascinating data from a recent car and driver report. We are looking at a true clash of the titans today. Audi's brand new, massive Q9 is officially entering the arena for the very first time to take on the reigning, undisputed champions of German luxury, BMW and Mercedes-Benz.
Okay, let's dive into this. Right off the bat, you gotta understand that Audi didn't just casually decide to build a slightly bigger car. No way. This was a deliberate, highly aggressive strategy. Philip Rebake, Audi of America's Senior Vice President of Product Management, tells us exactly what their non-negotiable philosophy was for the Q9. When asked what differentiates it from their midsize Q7, he literally said, "I want it all and I want the space." That's why we went in this generous direction. They wanted a vehicle that made absolute zero compromises on its sheer, unadulterated footprint.
So, to see if this newcomer can genuinely dethrone the established royalty, we've put together a tale of the tape scorecard. We're looking at round 1, sizing up the giants, round 2, the power struggle, round 3, utility and towing, and finally, round 4, price and the final verdict.
All right, let's kick things off with round 1, sizing up the giants. We're talking dimensions and space.
Now, what's really interesting here is that Audi's size advantage is just decisive. The 2027 Audi Q9 measures a staggering 209 inches long. That makes it 5.4 inches longer than the BMW X7 and a full 4 inches longer than the Mercedes GLS. You know, when you're navigating a tight city parking structure or trying to squeeze into a standard garage, those extra inches are huge. The source also notes it boasts the longest wheelbase of the entire trio, meaning an incredibly generous amount of that length is dedicated right where the passengers actually sit.
To put that 209 inches into perspective, Audi is aiming so incredibly high that they're approaching the ultimate benchmark for full-size luxury SUVs, the Cadillac Escalade. The Q9 stops just short of the Escalade's massive 211.9-inch footprint. But the fact that a German luxury brand is even knocking on the door of Escalade-level proportions, that shows you just how serious Audi is about completely dominating the space.
And it's not just long, it's also incredibly imposing vertically. The Q9 stands tall at 79.2 inches, which edges out the BMW X7's 78.7 inches. It's designed to establish a truly commanding presence on the road, ensuring you sit high above the traffic.
So, where does all that extra physical length actually go on the inside? Well, with all the seats up, Audi gives you 19 cubic feet of cargo volume. It edges out the Mercedes GLS by a single cube, but it absolutely crushes the BMW X7 by a massive 6 cubic feet. That's literally the difference between easily fitting your golf clubs or stroller for a weekend getaway and having to awkwardly leave something behind.
But automotive engineering, as we know, is always about trade-offs, right? Car and Driver points out a really interesting strategic sacrifice here. Despite that massive exterior, the Q9 actually doesn't beat the BMW or Mercedes when it comes to third-row passenger legroom. This highlights a very deliberate choice by Audi. They looked at how buyers actually use these vehicles and decided to strategically prioritize maximum luggage space over maximum legroom for those rearmost passengers. Moving right along to round 2, the power struggle, let's talk V6 and V8 powertrains.
This round kicks off with a massive haymaker. Audi just wins the base engine round outright. The Q9 enters the fray with a twin-turbo 2.9-liter V6 pushing an incredible 429 horsepower. Both of its German rivals, the BMW X7 xDrive 40i and the Mercedes GLS 450, are sitting way back at 375 horsepower with their standard turbocharged inline sixes. Audi is handing you a massive 54 horsepower advantage right out of the gate without forcing you to open your wallet for a higher trim.
Let's see how this builds when we look at the high-performance upgrades, because even when you step up to the V8 engines, Audi maintains its deeply aggressive stance. The performance tier Audi SQ9 brings a twin-turbo 4.0-liter V8, generating a whopping 591 horsepower. That easily outmuscles the direct V8 equivalents from BMW and Mercedes, which come in at 523 horsepower for the X7 M60i and 530 horsepower for the GLS 580. Across both standard tier comparisons, Audi is pretty much just daring the competition to keep up. Actually, there is one major outlier to Audi's total engine dominance. Mercedes has an ultra-tier trump card up its sleeve in the form of the AMG GLS 63.
This specialized beast edges out the Audi SQ9 by deploying a massive 603 horsepower V8. So while Audi clearly commands the standard and mid-tier performance categories, Mercedes does hold on to the absolute peak horsepower crown for this particular segment.
Okay, ding, ding, ding. Round 3, utility and towing. Time to talk about hauling the heavy weight.
Here, the Audi Q9 matches the Mercedes GLS pound for pound, with both rated for a very respectable 7,700 pounds of towing capacity. This leaves the BMW X7 trailing slightly behind at 7,500 pounds. Whether it's a boat or a heavy trailer, both the Audi and the Mercedes are proving that unparalleled luxury and heavy-duty utility can absolutely go hand in hand.
However, we do have to bring back our American benchmark, the Cadillac Escalade, for just a bit of hauling context here. If absolute maximum hauling is your primary goal, well, the Escalade's base rear-wheel drive configuration is still the undisputed king at an 8,100-pound rating. The Q7 is incredibly capable for a European luxury SUV at 7,700 pounds, but it doesn't quite topple the traditional body-on-frame giants when it comes to sheer towing supremacy.
And that brings us to our final round. Round 4, pricing and the final verdict.
So the crucial point is this: starting price, $89,095 for the base V6 version of the 2027 Audi Q9. The big takeaway from this figure is that despite the Q9 being the absolute largest vehicle among its German peers, and despite it having the most powerful base engine by a wide margin, it is surprisingly not the most expensive option on the block.
Let's break down exactly what that $89,095 means in the broader market context. This pricing lines up almost perfectly with the BMW X7 xDrive 40i, which sits at $89,050. But here is the real kicker. It undercuts the Mercedes GLS 450's starting price by a very noticeable $2,505. Audi is playing an incredibly aggressive game here, folks. They are purposefully delivering the absolute most standard horsepower and the absolute most physical size for your money, all in a calculated attempt to make you reconsider stepping into a BMW or Mercedes showroom.
Which leaves us with one final provocative question. In an escalating arms race of luxury SUVs, are superior size and horsepower enough to actually dethrone the established royalty? Audi certainly thinks so. They've brought a literal giant to a heavyweight fight, swinging hard with unmatched standard power and incredibly aggressive pricing. But whether these undeniable on-paper victories will translate to victory in the real-world showroom, well, that's something we'll all be watching closely. Thank you so much for tuning into this explainer. Until next time, keep analyzing the numbers and keep learning.